Hello again. How are you? Let's continue. I'll grab this. I need to move this a little bit across because it's in the wrong place for my eyes. So, we're nearly at the point where I can spend another 80. I mean, we're definitely at the point where I can spend another 80. I just don't want to because it will move us to 12 seconds instead of 11. And that change is quite significant. It doesn't seem like a lot, but the difference between like 10 and 11, 11 and 12 is actually quite a lot. So let's have a look, shall we? Well, it's 5 and 5.5. Well, not quite 5.5, is it? Yeah, 5.5, nearly. Anyway, that doesn't matter. Right, the point is, that's where I want to be. So when we get to press this button, I'll provide. I mean, it's going to go to 10 or something, and then I'm going to cry even more. I'll be like, but you know, it'll be all right, I'm sure. I mean, fingers crossed. And we might get to the point where this is done. So that'd be nice. Let's have a look. I'm just pressing buttons to have a look around, seeing what's going on. Oh, that's right. I was going to push that up to 100. Well, this I was going to push up, wasn't I? And look at that. We've got a nice little waterfall by our house. I don't think whoever designed their house to be right next to a waterfall thought it through, because the white noise from that is going to be loud. Although I suppose we're in the middle of space, and space doesn't conduct sound very well, so there is that. But what I'm actually thinking is, it's not just the sound that's going to be the issue. We probably got the technology to deal with it. It's an advantage of being in space, right? If we can get this far away from home, then we've probably got enough, what's it called? Come on. Sorry, I'm rolling a cigarette while I'm doing this. But yeah, so we've probably got enough, what's it called? Technology to dampen the sound. Like, I don't know, triple glazing or something. Quadruple glazing. Yeah. Although, we're not going to open the window out into space. We'll depressurize, that'd be rubbish. Although we wouldn't need to. Well, how would you get a nice breeze and that waft of freshly tinged watery smell from the waterfall? Because you want the watery smell from the waterfall. What's the point of having a waterfall otherwise, right? It's not just me. Or it might be me. I don't know, I can't tell. I would like to be able to smell it. And I know it's a peculiar thing to say, maybe. I don't know that it's peculiar. I think it's a little bit peculiar. But if you've got a waterfall, surely you want to sniff it. I mean, you're not going to go out and lick it. That's a little bit far. Mainly because you'll get all wet and you can't lick a waterfall. I mean, you can lick the rocks around the waterfall, but the water, it's flowing. I mean, you'll be there all day and you still won't have managed it. I wonder if the water recycles in that as well. Does it go down the bottom, splash out? Look, because look. It drops off here, right? But does it then get wheeked back around and then onto the top again? I just don't know. And I'm curious to find out. Come on. There we go. Right, thank you. More aluminium. Please, game. I demand more. More! Because aluminium is important to my life, apparently, according to this game. Actually, aluminium is quite important to everybody's lives. It's used everywhere, all over the place, all the time. Kind of a bit too much for its own good, if you ask me. Ever since we discovered how to take bauxite and refine it into pure aluminium. I mean, it's good, but is it really good? Sorry. Again, with the quoting from random TV shows. I think we can press that button, can't we? No! Yes. Okay. Right, hang on, I gotta see. Still 11, that's fine. I'm okay with it being still 11. If we can get it to 10, when I press the button, we'll get even more. Right, we'll get 60, I think. 10 minutes worth. No, that can't. Yeah, 6. 6 a minute for 10 minutes. That's 60. It's only a couple difference. It's not a big difference, right? It's probably not even worth worrying about at that point. But now we're over 1,000. It makes a big difference. Yeah. It's good. It's good. We've just hit 1,080. I mean, I'm half tempted to save it and just find out how much more we've got to spend. Because I could just try and blow it all, but I've got a feeling it's going to get real expensive real quick. But, well, still 11. I mean, the temptation is real. It really is. I don't know. So in other news, Britain seems to be arresting more people for tweets again. Who knew? Like, I'm not really much into tweeting. I don't even have Twitter or X or whatever it's called. I did have it for a little bit and then I hated it because it was just sucking up my time unnecessarily when I could be doing something, productive, like reading. And don't get me wrong, like I was subscribed to some good stuff like the Physics magazine, the Figures website, but they were like super political on there and I didn't want to read political stuff from physics organisations. I want to read physics from physics organisations. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy or something. I'm there for the science. I'm not there for whether or not, this or that is politically expedient or whatever. I don't know. I don't care. This sort of stuff's beyond me, right? And I'd read the stuff from Nature magazine or the journal Nature, I should say, and the journal. There was another journal as well that I'd read to do with medicine, the Lancet, like that sort of stuff. I'm in all the way. Oh, we've just hit 40%. Nice. 40% chance. That's it's 2 out of 5, not 4 out of 5. That's 80%. Don't be a doofus. But yeah, like I was into it, but no, I was mistaken because apparently everybody uses Twitter to be hyper political. So I stayed away from it eventually. I was just like, delete my account and the whole lot, right? Which I think is a good idea, honestly. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, apparently some ex-police officer tweeted something and he got arrested for it. And it's like, I don't understand. He was a copper and what he tweeted wasn't particularly bad or anything. It was just like, I think essentially he called somebody a Nazi. Well, he didn't. He didn't even do that. He inferred that they might have tendencies towards Nazism, which was a bold statement, I'm sure, from the point of view of the person who it was aimed at. But like, it's not exactly really bad, is it? I mean, I don't know, is it? Like, some people have said it to me. Like, I don't hold particularly Nazi viewpoints as far as I can tell. Mainly because, the only good Nazi is a unalived Nazi. Not into them. They were not very nice to my family over the years. Let's put it that way. So, but I always thought it was, like, it wasn't that bad. And if you had it coming, you had it coming. And I'm sure I've heard people talk about other people being Nazis all the time, right? But there was this, like, 70-year-old ex-cop who was like, oh, I mean, you're sounding like you might be a little bit Nazi here. And the cop was like, what? You can't say that. And I'm like, oh, interesting. I mean, he didn't even flat out categorically say you are a Nazi. He just said, you're sounding a bit Nazi. Sorry, 82 million iron is what we need. I thought it was 76, but that might have been the last time. So yeah, weird. I'm not sure I know what to think when it comes to that, because I always thought the police's job was to go around and stop people committing like burglaries and murders and stabbings and shoplifting and, you know, speeding, like things that are, you know, objectively bad for everyone. Or, you know, stop stalkers, because stalkers have a repeated pattern of behaviour that causes actual distress and harm, and quite often leads on to other things which are worse, right? But apparently British police don't do that anymore, which confuses me, because I know some police and they seem really keen on getting out there and stopping, I don't know, drug dealing or assault and battery, you know, that sort of nonsense. But no, apparently they're really keen on arresting people for tweets. And it makes me wonder, when did I start living in an authoritarian country? Because, I mean, it's starting to feel that way, right? I'm not much for that sort of nonsense. 10 seconds. Ooh, 10 seconds. Yeah, I'm not much for that sort of nonsense, right? Because to me, it's just like, really? But I didn't know you could get arrested for suggesting that somebody may or may not be a Nazi. I mean, I've heard people in the pub call each other Nazis before, and they weren't being very nice about it. Nobody got arrested then. It just makes no sense. Like, they actually, like, somebody, I've been in the pub where somebody's actually gone, "You're a Nazi," and then they start swearing and they're hurling all sorts of abuse. And, like, that's real, right? Now, I can understand that is direct sort of accusations, and it could even besmirch someone's character, no less, because you are actually calling them something which is incredibly derogatory when you think about it. But to insinuate that somebody has leanings towards Nazism, it's not a very direct statement, and it's not exactly calling someone something. It's just saying, well, you know, you sound a little bit like it, you know. But apparently that's enough. Right, and now I've got to start thinking about, well, you know, me making that suggestion on here and criticising the government because of it, or the police, and therefore the government as well. Will that land me in jail? I mean, it might, apparently. I mean, I doubt it. But, you know, he was a former high-ranking police officer, and he's now 71. You know, if they come around my house giving it all, well, you know, you done with the criticism of the government, like, apparently I've moved to North Korea, which is a bit weird, because I definitely haven't. I still pay council tax. We don't do council tax to North Korea. Not last time I checked, anyway. You know, and maybe there was a whole history of other things that was going on, but that seems to be the straw that broke the camel's back that they said they're arresting him for. At which point you got to wonder, pourquoi? Warum? Nandeska? You know, the whole thing. I mean, maybe it's just beyond me. Maybe I'm too much of a simpleton. I mean, I do YouTube, so it's possible. But I just figured, you know, that's kind of what Twitter was about anyway. You get on there and you try and score points by being mean to the people who have anything to say that goes counter to whatever you say. I just didn't realise Britain was that way inclined. I mean, what are they going to do when the Americans come over? Like, I've seen some of the posts that some of the Americans put out there. Like, left wing and right wing. And I suppose neutrals as well. Like, I'm pretty sure that... Right, hang on, I'm going to press that button, because we're at the point where I can press the button and... Doink! Look at that. Now we're at a point. And I'm going to press this button. Doink! We did get a little cottage. Ooh! Wait. Why do I have a feeling I've already done that? You must not have saved it. Yeah. 1,103? 1,103. We're still at 10 seconds, so I'm grateful. I can press this a lot. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Oh, it's only 3. Disappointment. I thought that'd be more. Still can't even press one of these yet. Oh, that's because they're 20 odd million. Billion. 20 odd billion. Yeah, I just didn't know that was a thing. Like, I mean, I'd heard rumours and, suggestions of such things, but you don't think about it. Like, there are plenty of people from abroad who, if they came over here now, could be held accountable for what they've said, even though in their own country they're protected by, I don't know, freedom of speech laws or whatever. Like, I'm looking at the Americans predominantly for this, but could you imagine, right? You're an American, you've come over here on holiday, and you said something mean to somebody in America, and then because you're in England and they happen to have noticed it, like, what's going on? That just seems mental. I don't mean, like, it's an old school term for things that don't really make sense, What's the expression? By all accounts, it just doesn't make sense. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I do not understand. And I know I'm a bit simple, right? There's no doubt there. But what? Do you know what I mean? In the words of Skeletor, what? What? If you've seen He-Man Masters of the Universe cartoon, you will know what that noise was. It's basically him saying what, but he hasn't got a nose, so he sounds more like what? It's very strange. It's funny though. But yes, I preferred She-Ra. I don't know why, just did. Wait a minute. Awesome. Sorry, something's come on the stereo, and I haven't heard it for a little while, and I love it because it's amazing. So it is, in fact, not what I was expecting it to be, which is weird. So it's technically, it's part of the Filthy House Mix, Volume 2, by Zen. However, they've just thrown in part of the Pink Panther, and I like the Pink Panther. It's very, very jazzy, and I love jazzy songs. Maybe a bit too much for my own good, I'm not going to lie. I prefer the original Pink Panther to that mix that they've thrown in with it, but, that's a technical term, by the way. So yeah, turns out we have creeping authoritarianism in Britain. And I did not realise. I mean, I did realise. I'm not going to lie. There were moments in the past, and I was like, well, maybe it'll blow over. Doesn't look like it will. Because, like, I remember the time, like, when I was a kid, right? People would be really racist towards me, like really racist, like unbelievably racist. Nothing ever happened. They didn't even get told off, right? And I'd be like, that doesn't seem right. And I don't know what to do with this information now, because I always thought Britain was a reasonably fair country, and it's starting to appear to not be. Like, it's very much do as Herr Starmer says, or you go to jail. And don't get me wrong, it was just as bad under Herr Johnson and Herr Cameron and Herr Truss. Oh no, it's not Herr Truss, is it? That's something else. Fraulein Truss. Yes, Fraulein Truss. Like, all of our leaders ever since, I guess, Tony Blair, have been very much like, like, you'll be fine so long as you do as we say. And then they've slowly reduced more and more what we can and can't do and or say, which is weird, because we're still a member of the European Charter for Human Rights, right? And Article 9 says we're allowed to be able to say and do anything we like in that respect, provided we're not, essentially, what's the word? Inciting violence, causing sedition, that sort of, like, calling for riots, that sort of nonsense, right? And to be honest, who wants to riot? There's much better ways of dealing with a problem than burning down a town, right? Because you still got to live in the town after you've burnt it down. I don't think you've thought it through, right? Anybody who wants to burn down a town with rioting is probably not really thinking clearly. But they seem to be targeting mild-mannered, medium folks, right? They're not targeting the extremists. It's like Britain's got some of the toughest laws when it comes to possession of weaponry of any description, right? And they really hate ninjas. By the way, they really hate ninjas. I'm not sure what ninjas ever did to us, but apparently our government is terrified of ninjas, especially ninjas that might fight zombies. Yeah, but that's a classification of weapon, right? Ninja zombie weapons or something. Anyway, but they keep banning more and more different weapons, and the thing is our celebrity class, right? The talking heads who do like film and theatre and music and whatnot, they're all like, oh yeah, you should ban this, more knives. Like one of them even recently said you should take the tips off kitchen knives. And I'm like, okay, but what about forks then? Because they're just as sharp and they can do just as much damage. And it's not like you can't buy a whetstone, right? I can sharpen anything. Hell, I can turn a stick into a weapon if I want to, right? It's not difficult. I can go get a bit of wire, turn it into a shiv. Screwdrivers. You're going to ban screwdrivers as well? Do we have to have a license to own screwdrivers? Is that where it's going? Like, it's a little bit concerning. And it's got nothing to do with us leaving Europe either. Right? I'm still undecided on whether or not leaving Europe was the right or wrong thing to do. I'm not smart enough to be able to make that choice. There's too many moving parts and nobody talks clearly about the options available, right? Which is, honestly, really blooming annoying. Because I was sitting there going, I want to know what the options are and what happens if this happens and that happens, and nobody could answer any of my questions because it's too complicated for most people, and the ones who did know, neither side were telling the truth. So what are you supposed to do? Oh, well, you've got to make a good guess, I was told. And I'm like, no. Plato was very clear. The people who are worst for democracy are the people who vote and don't know what they're voting on. And with something like Brexit, it was just vibes, man. You have to go with your feelings. No, that's not how you vote. You have to vote with knowledge. Forearmed is forewarned. And the pen is the mightiest of all weaponry, right? Because if you've got the knowledge, you know what's coming. But they wouldn't have it. And I spoke to some of the brightest people around who all said they knew what they were talking about. And when I really started drilling down into it and asking them questions, none of them had a clue. They were just going, well, I vote this side, so therefore I'm going to vote this way. And I'm like, really? Oh yeah, well that guy's this type of person, so I'm voting against him. Right. Okay. And I asked them, do you know what's caused it? And they're like, oh well, because of... So one group were like, oh yeah, because of racist. And the other lot were like, oh, because of immigration. I'm like, okay. So you can't even agree on why it's happening. Because it was not really to do with either of those things. Like, they had a part, don't get me wrong, but Brexit, Britain was looking to reform some very strict, or some very lax rules on the type of people who have over 50 million in the bank, right? And suddenly, when that reform was coming in Europe no less, which we were a part of, suddenly there's this big uprising and money being spent on campaigning against us being in Europe, right? But no, I mean, that's definitely nothing to do with it. Can't be anything to do with it. I'm just going crazy, right? And don't get me wrong, right? Migration was an issue, and there are some racist people in Britain, for sure. There really are. But, I'm a suspicious sort when it comes down to it, and I'm thinking, realistically, when has the policies by any government ever really been done to benefit the average working person? Right? I mean, they're all about benefiting the rich people and the corporations. I'm looking at you, Amazon, for not having to pay tax. Google doesn't have to pay tax. You don't pay tax, you go to jail. How dare you not pay tax? It's an outrage, right? Google, oh yeah, but you know, they bring money. Yeah, but do they though? Like, how much money do they actually bring? Oh, it's money through data. Yeah, but they're gathering that data unethically. They shouldn't be allowed to gather 90% of the stuff they do. Have you read the end user license agreement? The gumph that they make you scroll through and say I agree when you sign up to Disney Plus. Because there's a thing in there that says you're not allowed to sue them if you, as a class action lawsuit, you have to go to arbitration instead. Like, who reads the EULA? But they want to take away your right to sue if they do something wrong, and you feel strongly enough that you feel it needs suing. Right? Nintendo are trying to do the same thing. But the thing is you can opt out on page 140 or something, section 16, when you finally get there, if you get there, because who's going to read 140 pages of EULA? Like people like me who are dyslexic, I'm never going to read that thing because I just can't. There's not enough hours in the day. There's just not. Right? I struggle to read the stuff I want to read. Why would I try and read the things that I don't? But if I want to use the thing, I have to, no. You're using that as an abuse of the actual, so you're using the letter of the law to usurp the spirit of the law, because you know that realistically, if you were to put that in bold at the beginning, nobody would agree to it. Right? And you put all of the legal terms like, oh well, partner means blah blah blah, and 6 paragraphs later you've got a definition. And it's like, come on. I understand why you think you have to do these things, and you're all about liability, but have you thought about, just not and acting fair and responsibly? But they don't want to do that. That seems unreasonable to me. Like, I'm almost never going to consider suing someone. A, because it costs a lot of money, and B, because I'd rather just set fire to the product. Right? Oh, it's rubbish. I'm just going to set fire to it. That costs you 500 quid. Yes, but if it's that bad that I'm considering setting fire to it, I don't want anybody else to use it, do I? I'm not saying to go and set fire to anybody else's equipment. I'm going to set fire to my own. Right? That's me. But if I feel strongly enough to sue someone over a thing, they must have done something pretty bad. Like, really, really bad. Because I'm British, the closest most British people get to writing a complaint is they get a piece of paper out, they put some words to the paper using a pen, and then they put it in a drawer because they can't be bothered to buy a stamp. Do you know what I mean? Right? It might be different for the younger generations because they tweet at each other, and you can tweet at corporations going, nah, what you doing? I'm not going to do that. I don't even want to use Twitter or X or Blue Sky or social media in general. I'm not into it. Right? Video sharing platform like YouTube, I'm mostly okay with. I'm honestly not that okay with it, but Rumble's not supported on a lot of things outside of having a PC. Like, it's almost impossible to get Rumble on my phone. It's not even supported on the App Store, right? And that's like there's another one. It's now, because of the way that the British Ofcom, so the people in charge of, so it's the Office for Communications, it's the UK regulator for broadcast and distribution of information, right? They brought in this law of some description, which means I can't remember the name of the company, but they're a video sharing platform. You can upload to them still, but you can't view anything on their platform at all, because they don't want to get caught by Ofcom distributing something that could be fall foul of their regulations, right? So they've just pulled out of Britain in a sharing way. So you can share with the world as a British person, but you can't receive anything from the rest of the world. Now, that in itself is starting to sound a bit like the Great Firewall. Oh yeah, but it's for your protection. No, information, even misinformation, can be used for my protection. Removing access to information dumbs me down and removes my ability to use critical thinking skills and understand what's actually going on in the world. Fair and balanced viewpoints from different countries, right? Very important. Like, incredibly important. Are we at 9 seconds? We are at 9 seconds. I'm waffling on about this issue because I've got beam up on it. But look at that. 1 every 9 seconds. That's amazing. But actually, oh no, we're like, honestly, but yeah, the point is, like, it can't make sense, right? For somebody to turn around and say, well, you know, you shouldn't listen to this information because you can't handle that information yourself. We don't trust you to know whether or not it's real. And the thing is scientific information is really interesting on this one, right? Because science, the information around science changes as more data comes in, right? So I talk about this, I've talked about it a couple of times. So climate science, because I am a proponent that climate change is real, and I'm a proponent that anthropomorphic, so human-caused climate change, is not the whole story, right? And I disagree with the last several generations of climate scientists in terms of the proportion that humans are involved in damage to the climate. So I just found this out earlier. It's called, there was a channel called Better Have a Think, and he was talking about something, and he put it really lovely about how this is going to change climate science. And they were talking about how the way they viewed carbon uptake, so the reabsorption of carbon dioxide from, and therefore carbon, from the atmosphere by plants in certain areas, was looked at by the IPCC, so the International Panel for Climate Change, in a way which is obviously wrong. And I've thought this for a while, right? But they've just started talking about, and this guy does a beautiful thing, right? And he's normally reasonably fair and balanced on his opinions. I don't agree with him for all of it, but most of what he says is well researched, it's well thought out, and it's up to date. But you roll back 5 years, and he would have told you, no, if you think that trees are important, you're wrong. Because according to the IPCC, you would have been wrong. Now that they've got more information, they're like, maybe we missed a trick with this, because that's actually really important, isn't it? Right? Now, 5 years ago, you know, totally legit. 5 years ago, totally legit. But science changes as more data comes in. You know, it's like we see aurora come down, and they don't normally come down past the Arctic Circle. Last year they came down to Delaware and Florida and Basingstoke. I mentioned it before, right? Now, the radiation from the sun that was causing it, like the highly charged proton streams, which are the reason why we get aurora, right? They weren't much stronger than they would normally be. And the last time, say in the 1800s, like 1870 something, with the Carrington event, I think it was, where we had aurora around Basingstoke and Delaware, right, was, I think, 20 or 30 times stronger solar activity than what we had the last time we had the aurora this century. Now, that's because of a change in the Earth's magnetic field, and if that's to do with climate change, there is no clear mechanism within climate change that would explain that, right? So there's obviously something in the picture that we're missing. right? A massive, massive thing that we're missing. Now, for all we know, it could be because of our use and production of electricity, we're changing the electromagnetic field of the entire planet because of the nature of how our electric fields and communications arrays are interacting with the ionosphere, which is a possibility. I don't believe that's the case, but it's a possibility. But nobody's done the research to find out. They just don't know. They don't know what's causing the nature of those changes to allow for aurora to appear around Basingstoke and Delaware or Mexico. They cannot explain these things, not with any reasonable mechanism. Now, mechanisms are incredibly important in physics and science in general because that's how you get repeatable effects. If you understand a mechanism, you can plot it out and then you can repeat it to demonstrate that you're accurate. But you go back 20 years, nobody was talking about weakening magnetic field of the Earth, right? Whereas now they're talking about the weakening magnetic field of the Earth and its implications to society as a whole. Now, if you're interested in this, I would recommend Suspicious Observers. He's a great channel, and there's a guy called Sky Scholar. He's a doctor in radiology, very, very clever man. But they have some really interesting hypotheses on what these things are. Now, I say hypotheses, not theories, because although we're in the process of testing them, currently, as reasonable as their conclusions seem, we don't have enough evidence to guarantee that they are right. They look right on the surface, they look right at reasonable dig, but there's still a lot more testing. But if you look at CMIP6, right, CMIP6, which is the climate model for the IPCC, they don't take enough of the sun into account for our climate change, which, I don't know, like, it's the sun, it's where basically all of the energy for the entire planet comes from. How can you ignore it? I mean, am I missing something? I mean, I'm obviously missing something. I must be, because how could I know what I'm talking about to the same degree as thousands and thousands of scientists, outside of having read hundreds and hundreds of papers, meta-studies, meta-analyses, research papers that get published. Like, they're all over the place, and if you're a nerd, you'll read them. I have enough of a background in science that I understand quite a lot of what I'm reading, and what I don't, I've got the internet, I can look it up, right? Now, I'm not going to say I know what I'm talking about. I'm just not. But I do know that there is a change in information, and therefore our outlook changes. You know, it's like you get up in the morning, you look out the window, it looks warm. You go outside and it's blooming cold because you remember it's springtime in England, right? But it looks really warm from the window. Well, guess what? You go back inside and get a coat because you've updated your information. But it's that simple, right? This is how science works. You do it, you make a prediction, you go and test it. If you're wrong, you adjust your prediction accordingly and try it again, right? So, you know, I look out the window, I'm like, it looks lovely. I put shorts and a t-shirt on. I get to the front door, open the door, I'm like, that's colder than I thought it was, maybe long trousers. So I put my long trousers on. I go back outside. I'm like, no, my arms are cold. Still not as warm as I thought it was. You know, so I then go and put a jumper on. Go outside, get to the car. I'm like, actually, maybe I need a coat. So you go back inside, grab a coat, just on the off chance, you never know. Then you're out of the house for 2 hours, and you're like, I should have brought a hat. Right? Now, that seems like a really reduced form of analysis of the problem, but it is just like that, right? And guess what? The next day, you see the weather, and you look out and you dress according to what you should have done the day before, because you recognise it and go, looks like the weather's lying to me again. And then you go outside, and if it's too warm, you take your hat off. But the point is, you know, you are adjusting your framework based on the evidence presented to you, not on just the predictions that you make. Because if you're only operating on the prediction, you go outside and you're stuck in shorts and a t-shirt when it should be, like, you know, thermals weather. Now, like, that is a reduction ad absurdum, you would call it. So it's taking things to the extreme, to the absurd, in terms of how much I'm reducing the complexity of climate change down to bad weather in England on a spring day, right? Because bad weather in England on a spring day doesn't necessarily look like it's going to be horrible. It looks beautiful, right? I've been to Vegas, right? And sometimes in Vegas, the weather in spring looks exactly like it does in Britain. Exactly like it does in Britain. I can tell you one thing for nothing. It's definitely not the same. Right? In Vegas, it's 23 degrees. When you look out a window, it looks 23 degrees, but you can't tell because the window's in the way, and the sun still feels as warm because it's the sun through a window. You go outside, you can wear your swimming cosy and jump in the pool. In Britain, you can do that, but you'll be smuggling peanuts. Yep. And you'll probably want a hot shower when you get in. Whereas, you could lay by the pool all day in Vegas and you wouldn't mind because it's still 23 degrees all day. And that's from 8:30 in the morning. Right? It's just funny little things. Now, like I say, we change our sort of output, our outlook and our predictions based on new data. And, climate is a great example about how things are changing. Right? But it appears that it's not just climate, is it? It's, as I've been talking about earlier, is that it would appear very much like Britain is undergoing some sort of horrible... Hey, we got a windmill! I had to press the button. I didn't have to press the button, but I wanted to press the button because, that'll be back up to 9 seconds, or down to 9 seconds. We got a windmill! Got extra power. But yeah, like, it's starting to appear to me that our political landscape is changing, and I don't think it's for the better either way. Like, people are saying, oh, it's too much far right, and then the right side are saying, oh, it's too much far left, and I'm like, I remember the days when it used to be a little bit less, one side or the other. Is a little bit more, let's work together and try not to be completely defeatist, because overall we're here to try and benefit the people. And in my lifetime, that's changed, right? And there was always a level of bipartisanship, right? Oh, the Reds want this, therefore we as the Blues don't want it. No matter how good an idea it was. I remember speaking to an MP, just like one of my first voting opportunities, and I said to this MP, I was like, because he was trying to get everybody to vote for him, and he was like, so what do you reckon? I'm like, well, I've got a couple of questions, mate. And my friend started giggling, because of course I've got questions. I've got questions until the cows come home, and then until they go back out again, and probably until they come back again. I have questions. I can't help myself. I'm a curious sort of person. Now, the guy said to me, all right, so what's your questions then? And I was like, right, simple. This idea that the previous party had was really good. So are you going to continue to implement it? And the guy went, what, if we get in power? I was like, well, obviously if you get in power. If you don't get in power, you have no control over the situation, do you? And he went, oh yeah, good point. Yeah, well, I mean, if we get in power, no, we're not going to implement it. I was like, why not? He went, well, because we don't think it's a good idea. And I was like, but it's clearly a good idea because of this, and this. Like, it benefits the working man. It benefits the poor. It benefits, say, the NHS or whatever else. I mean, there was a couple of things, but we'll just assume it benefits the NHS. In this one particular case, actually, there was one that did. And he went, no, but because of this, that's actually not a good idea. And I was like, huh. And the people around me were like, no, we all disagree with you. And we all want to vote for you. And he went, oh, that's interesting. Well, we're still not going to do it. And I went, is it because it was their idea? And he went, no. And I went, so why aren't you going to do it? Because your argument for why it's not a good idea doesn't hold water. And he went, well, it's policy. I went, what do you mean? He goes, so the organisation that is the party I represent have decided it's not a good idea, based on your flawed reasoning that you've told me. And he went, yeah. And I went, well, can you go back and tell them? And he went, no, they won't listen to me. I went, well, then why am I voting for you? If you're going to just completely get rid of the only thing that the previous government was doing that was any good, like, you're going to scrap the rest of it, I don't care. But this is really solid. Like, think about it like this. If I was to say to you, as a leader, I'm going to find the way, and it won't cost us more, and bear in mind, imagine that this is actually all true. It's a hypothetical, it's not real, because I'm not a leader, and I'm not a politician, I'm a doofus on the internet, right? But if I could say, I don't know, all kids get free pencils at school, right? Never have to buy a pencil again, because you need pencils the whole way through school, so you all get free pencils. I don't know, one a month or something, or one every couple of months, I don't know, however many pencils you probably need, but one a month should be enough, right? It's a lot of pencils, I grant you, but we're the government, we can get them cheap because we can bulk buy, right? Now, if you use more than your allotted one a month, you have to buy extra for yourself. That's not my problem. But if we give everybody a pencil one a month or whatever, right? And it's not going to cost anybody more money, right? When the next government comes in, and because we've managed to find a way of making it so it doesn't cost us more money, if they cancelled it because any reason whatsoever, doesn't that sound a bit weird? Like, don't get me wrong, I'm all for you should provide for yourself, right? And you should do this, and like, I'm quite into the concept of potential libertarianism, right? But realistically, right, kids can't provide for themselves. They're not able to. That's not how kids do. They are incapable, what with them being, you know, kids. Come on. Oh no, wait, I'm still 400,000 away. That's silly. But you get my point, right? If there's a really good policy, why should it matter who first came up with it? You know? And I've always thought this. It's like, if I was running for government and my opposition, right, so like, I don't know, I'm running for the Beef Hat Party and the Squirrel Hat Party are in government and they've got this idea. And they've got a whole bunch of stuff. And one of them goes, well, for re-election, we promised to do this thing. And we'll say it's the pencils thing, right? We promised to put pencils to, like, one pencil a month to every child while they're at school. Right? Normally, the opposition party go, well, that's a stupid idea. I think it's a great idea. So I'll go, actually, no, they're right. That's a good idea. I'm going to do that too, because that's a good idea. I think they're right, and I'm just going to steal that idea. And when they go, you haven't got any original ideas. Oh, I've got loads of ideas that are original. It's just that one's really good. I'm just going to steal it. That way, it doesn't matter which one of us gets in, that gets done, right? But no politician seems to do that. No political party does it. I don't understand why. Right? Because if I'm the Beef Hat Party and they're the Squirrel Hat Party and we've both got something that we agree on, that means the country gets the thing. Now, how it's implemented might be slightly different because they're squirrel hats and nobody trusts the squirrel hats. But you see what I mean? Like, why aren't we more collaborative in our methodology? I just don't get it. And I know I see it with an overly simplistic sort of viewpoint, but I look at the voting records of the British MPs, right? And it's quite scary that you see them going, oh yeah, we definitely want to do this thing, and then they vote against it. And then you get others going, oh, we definitely don't want to do this thing, and then they vote for it. And it's like, I'm confused. Because I thought you said you did. Like, I challenged my local MP a while ago about it. And he was like, so a medical doctor, right, swore an oath to do no harm and take no actions that would lead to harm for other people, right? And he was all for sending troops to some dodgy country somewhere. I'm not going to talk about where it was or when it was, because I don't want to incriminate the guy, because he's a moron. Because I've spoken to a number of doctors, and they're like, you see, I kind of see why we should send troops to these places, but I just can't do it. I'm like, why is that? And they're like, I swore an oath. I can't take actions that would lead to the harm of other people. And I'm like, that's noble. Well done you. Hippocratic oath. Good work, right? And they're like, wow, thank you for recognising it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily agree with you, but I get it. So this guy was all for sending troops to this country, right? in a very ambiguous situation as well. The situation that was involved, you can't be sure that you're sending troops for the right reasons, right? You know, politically speaking, in terms of the way that NATO and the West were, both sides in this country in question were very much not our friends, right? But this guy's like, oh no, you got to do this because of this, and I'm like, okay. So what about the Hippocratic Oath? He was like, I don't think it applies here. And I'm like, well, it's funny because a number of my doctor friends said it still applies because of this. And he went, well, they're wrong. And I'm like, okay, so you're one guy who's a politician and there's like 30 doctors who've all said to me that you're wrong. I mean, I should probably take consensus, right? And he went, no, they're idiots. And I was like, okay. And he didn't say it exactly that way, but that's what his implication was, right? No, I mean, that's up to him. He can believe that they aren't as smart as him because he's a politician and they've only studied being a medical doctor just as much as he has. Only they didn't retire and he did, right? But he was like, oh, we should do this and then the other. And then he was starting to talk about chemical weapons. And it was another reason why we should be sending troops. And I'm like, okay. So do you want the troops to fight, or do you want the troops to distribute this, and this, which were the particular type of treatments and preventatives for the chemical weapons in question? And he went, oh no, the troops should be there to fight. And I was like, see, there you go again. Because you're a medical doctor, you know what these treatments are, right? And he went, yeah. And I went, so why would you oppose sending those treatments instead of trying to, kill people? And he was like, you don't understand. And then I had to explain to him that I might understand more than he thought. But, obviously, he didn't win any battles that day in terms of winning votes or support for any of his ideas, because I just shredded him into about 1 million pieces. And the whole crowd was with me by the end of it. And I'm not even a great orator, it's just that I ask questions. But I don't understand. I just don't get it. It's like, there's so much going on that is so very, very complicated that why are we trying to make it more difficult when we could make it easier on ourselves by, being a bit nicer or trying not to murder everybody that disagrees with us? I mean, I don't think that's radical. I mean, maybe I am radical. Maybe trying not to murder everybody who disagrees with us is a incredibly radical viewpoint, and I should be taken out and given a pint of hemlock. Who knows? I just can't tell anymore, and it confuses me that I think that, I'm clearly not the only one. I can't be. I'm blethering away. I've been blethering for nearly 50 minutes on this random subject of nonsense and shenaniganery, which is a fantastic word, shenaniganery. But do you know what I mean? It's like, I'm not the smartest person in the room, and yet I see these things. So if the people who are leading us, who are supposedly smarter than me, they're all successful in business, they're successful socially, they're successful within politics, blah blah blah, and they're making these decisions, but they don't seem to understand what they're doing when I ask them questions about it. I don't know. It's beyond me. It's like, I spoke to a different MP about energy, right? And I said to him, we keep shutting down power stations. And he went, yeah. And I went, do you not think that's a problem? And he went, no, not really. I was like, okay, so what's your solution to deal with that shortfall in electricity as our demand grows over time? And he went, well, we're going to do this. I was like, okay, so the projected amount of coverage that will cause will be about 25% of our actual requirement due to growth over time. So as that increases, so does our growth, but our growth increases by way more, right? And he went, oh, well, what do you suggest? And I went, have you thought about, I don't know, nuclear power stations, solar panels on roofs with batteries in the actual building, so that they can store energy for themselves before selling it back to the grid. That way we have a decentralized energy network. And he went, Well, you see, the problem is energy's not a very sexy subject. So if you want me to deal with it, you should try and help me become Prime Minister. And I'm like, excuse me? And he went, what? And I went, you're part of the Energy Select Committee, the people in government who deal with energy issues. Right, I'm having a moan now. But I feel justified in having a moan because this guy was using it as an opportunity to try and self-promote himself, to try and promote himself into the position of leadership, using my backbone and knowledge rather than because he realised it was the right thing to do. His attitude was, I'm doing nothing until I'm Prime Minister. I'm like, have you thought about trying to do something and then maybe you will become Prime Minister? And he was very dismissive. And at that point, I'm like, well, what is the point then? If your attitude is that these things don't, like, I don't need to put the effort in, then why should we care about what you want or vote like? Right? Because you're not voting for the benefit of the country, you're voting for the benefit of your own pocket. It's very distressing to a simpleton like me. Like, my brother's totally in the weeds with it. He can't get enough, and he thinks he knows way more than he probably does. My mum, she avoids it at all cost, right? Me, I try and keep abreast of as much as I can, but there's so much out there. How can you keep a knowledge on everything? You just can't, right? And it's very complicated. I wish I knew more. That's all I can say about it. So, moving on then. I mean, it's only taken me nearly 56 minutes to talk about this, and I'm still nowhere further on, but it's just me blethering, right? I'm having a grumble. I'm not sure why I feel so heated about it today. But yeah, it's just one of the things. But yeah, thorough recommendation. Better Ever Think, Suspicious Observers, and Sky Scholar. All thoroughly valuable tools in your quest to find more information when relating it to where the planet's going and how the climate is behaving over the next however many years, right? Or at least they seem valuable and credible to me from what I've read of the papers they suggest. You know, some of them are preprint articles that have yet to be peer reviewed, and then, you know, give it 4 or 5 years and they're all peer reviewed, and you're like, see? And I recommended to a mate of mine who's done physics as well, and he was like, oh, all the links to this thing was broken. I was like, right, okay. And then I was like, so that particular thing, look at this video then. And he was like, well, it's by the same guy, why should I care? I said, because it's the one that has the link to the published article, because that one was the preprint, and now it's been peer reviewed and assessed and okayed and everybody agrees with it. And he went, oh, well, I don't really want to listen to it because there was one broken link. And I was like, okay, mate. I mean, I followed hundreds of links through that, but, you know, one broken link, what are you going to do? He was like, I don't feel like you're taking me seriously. And I went, I don't feel like I'm taking you seriously either. I just thought you'd be interested in more information that you didn't have before. And, you know, it's not like you haven't got the title of the article. You can Google the title as well. I've done it many times. And he went, well, I don't have time for that. I went, well, that might be more of your problem than mine then, isn't it? If you're not prepared to make the effort in terms of time to deal with an issue. 42! Amazing. It's a good number. Do I spend the 100? I spend the 100, right? Doink. Oh. That's kind of disappointing. We've got a little bit more grass on the top. I don't know that was worth it, if I'm honest. We're down to 10 seconds again instead of 9. It's literally down this time. But, I mean, I've done 80, 90 and 100, right? So that's why I wanted to save up more, because the more we save up, the better it is, right? The quicker we're going to accrue the prestigium. So I've done 3 upgrades to the island, whereas previously I've done very little. There ends up not being a cow. I'm going to be very disappointed. I demand a cow at my residence at the end of the universe. Now, Is it the end of the universe, or is it the edge of the universe, or is it the outside of the universe? Because, I mean, maybe we should set up a restaurant there. You know? A little reference right at the very end, just for those of you who are still with me paying attention. And if you are, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for the last hour of me just whittling on about everything. It's just my brain sometimes goes that way. I can't help it. I mean, I'll give you a clue. It's 0300 in the morning, and I'm not saying that to go woe is me or nothing. I'm just saying, like, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm doing this, and my brain's just gone slightly wonky. I can't help it. There's nothing I can do about it. It's just a wonky brain session. So I'm gonna just click this for a little bit until we can get one more titanium boost, or spend of titanium, you know what I mean. Look for a bean shop. It's a Cowboy Bebop reference, by the way. If you haven't seen it, I would thoroughly recommend it. There's a little bit too much male gaze, but other than that, it's a fantastic story. So yeah, look where we are. We got some red stars in the background. It used to be all black. Now there's some red stars and some blue dots and some grey dots and a waterfall that I don't know where the water's coming or going from. Going to. You know what I mean. Nobody knows what I mean. I'm just full of nonsense. And on that note, thank you for joining me. Have a lovely day. Bye.